Okay, good afternoon. This year is thanks to Rivka. What are the super mitzvot? It's a Fuhr Shlema Yehuda Chaim and Esther Sarah, Fuhr Shlema. And later Nishmas Elimelech ben Levi Yitzchak, Yaakov HaKohen ben Gedalia Cohen, Avraham Yosef ben Yaakov HaKohen, Tzvi Dov ben Chaim Pesach, Yitzchak ben Sarah, the Orvas Yitzchak, Avraham ben Mordechai David, Reuben ben Shmuel, Shalom Osachon Yeshua ben Shmuel, Chaim ben Fega, Yaakov ben Yitzchak, Mordechai Netzach ben Rivka, Rachel bas Yosef, Eliezer ben Yaakov, Chaim ben Gedalia, Zalman Lev ben Moshe, Chaim Elio ben Yosef Moshe, Amichai ben Yaakov ben Gedalia ben Tzvi Ruvain, Leila Nishmatam. What are the super mitzvot? There are 613 mitzvot, but there are certain mitzvot that are considered super mitzvot. But first of all, the super three averot. We know that there are different types of sins. Some sins when you do your chayev malchus, lashes. Other sins a person's chayev karet, lo yaleinu, or misas bezdin. But the three worst sins that a person can commit, you know, the v'chai, the greatest mitzvah in the Torah is to stay alive. So if your life is in danger, then you're supposed to eat on Yom Kippur or break the Shabbos. But there are three mitzvahs that you can't do to save your life. For those three mitzvot, life wouldn't be worth living. So what are the three mitzvahs that a person has to die rather than transgress? Avodah zarah, worshipping J.C. Penney, Gili Arayot, sexual immorality, which includes homosexuality, and shvichat damim, murder. So for those three sins, a person would have to give up his life rather than what? Transgress. But all the other mitzvahs in the Torah, if your life is in danger, you're obligated to what? Staying alive, okay? B'chai bohem. Now what are the super mitzvot? Let's look at source number 1. This is from Rashi, in Bamidbar Perik Tezvav. Rashi quotes from Moshe Hadarshan, Lama nismacha pashas mikoshesh lepashas avodah zarah. We have in Bamidbar Tezvav, we have the parsha of not worshiping idols next to the parsha of the guy who gathers sticks on Shabbos. Gathering sticks on Shabbos, ma'amer, making bundles on Shabbos is one of the Lamites Malachot, ma'amer. So why is the parsha of Avodah Zarah next to the parsha of the Shabbos desecrator? Loimish mechalet Shabbat over the Avodah Zarah. Yiddish, if someone breaks the Shabbos, it's considered as if he what? Worshipped Avodah Zarah. Shkula keneged kol mitzvah shebetorah. How do we know that Shabbat is equal to all the mitzvahs in the Torah? How do we know that? There's a pasuk in Ezra, in source number 1. Ezra, in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 9, Ezra and Nehemiah were what? Colleagues at the beginning of Bayis Sheni. Ezra was the leader of world Jewry, and Nehemiah was what? His assistant. Nehemiah happened to be the prime minister, of Darius II, who was the son of Esther. Before you know it, Purim is coming up. So Nehemiah was the prime minister to Darius II, who authorized the building of what? Of the second temple. So Ezra says, Ahar Shina Yeradaton, source number 1, God, you came down on Mount Sinai, Batiten Lamcha Torah mitzvot, and you gave your people Torah mitzvot, Ves Shabbat Kotchecha Hadat Lahem. Well, isn't Shabbos part of Torah mitzvahs? Why does Nehemiah have to say, or Ezra have to say, God, you came down on Mount Sinai, you gave your people Torah mitzvahs, and oh, by the way, you also gave them what? Shabbat. Last time I checked, Sonia, Shabbat is part of Torah mitzvot. So if Ezra says you gave us Torah mitzvahs, why does he have to single out what? Shabbat. To teach you that what? That Shabbat is equal to all the mitzvahs of the Torah. Buy one, get 613. And what else is equal? Jews love bargains, right? And what else is equal to all the mitzvah Torah? Our parsha tzitzis. Next to the parsha of the Shabbos desecrator, you have what parsha, Yehuda? Tzitzis. Why? Shafu shkula keneged kol mitzvah shebetorah. Wearing tzitzis is also buy one, get 613. Vasitem es kol mitzvotai. The Torah says in the parsha of tzitzis, when you wear tzitzis, I consider it as if what? You did all my mitzvot. So what are the super mitzvahs so far? I hope you're counting, Yosei. Shabbat, tzitzit, right? And the worst sin is avodah zarah. But the super mitzvahs so far are Shabbat and tzitzit.
How about staying alive?
Well, how about staying? Well, that's a given, right? Because if you're dead, you can't do any mitzvahs. Right? V'chai bahem. Right? You're asking a good question. Who's asking a good question? V'chai bahem. Staying alive. Well, if you're not alive, then nothing else applies. That's a given, right? To answer your question, we'll ask another Yehuda. The Rambam lays down 13 principles of faith on Imamim. So the Rambam says, last time I compiled the list, I think I forgot, what about the Chira Chavshis? How do you say that in English?
Free will.
Free will. So the Rambam asked upon himself the 13 principles of faith that every Jew is supposed to believe in. What about free will? So the Rambam says that can't be a principle that precedes, because if you don't have free will, the other 13 Yosef don't operate. So if you're not alive, the other mitzvahs don't count. So obviously staying alive, like free will, is what? Is a given. Because if you don't believe in free will, and if you're not alive, then nothing else matters, okay? So once you're alive, what?
Hand in hand. Free will and staying alive.
Right, free will and staying alive, right? So far we have the super mitzvah of what? Shabbat, and we have the super mitzvah of what? Tzitzis, and what else? My favorite, number 2, Sifri, Devarim. The Torah says in Sifri and Devarim, the Torah says in Devarim, actually, chapter 12, V'yirishtem ota v'yishaftem ba. You shall possess her and dwell in her. Who is her? Ushmartem lasot kol hachukim ha'eleh. And then it says, you shall do all of my mitzvot. So what has living in the land of Israel got to do with doing all the mitzvot? David, why is it in the same pasuk? So therefore, Chazal learned in source number 2, since it says dwell in her. Where's that? Pisgat Zev. I mean, where? In Ratafia. And that's considered doing all the chukim. Why is it in the same pasuk, Masha? I hope you're looking in. Source 2. Yeshivat Eretz Yisrael Shkula Keneged Kol HaMitzvah Shebetorah. From here we learn that living in the land of Israel is equal in importance to what? All the mitzvahs, because it says Yishaftem ba, and then it says Lasot, that's called a chukim. But if you live in Israel, it's considered that if you did what? All the chukim. What do chukim mean? The laws of the Torah.
So it's Shabbos, tzitzis, and living in Israel.
So far, I hope you're counting. We're not finished yet. Shabbos, tzitzis, living in Israel, but we're not finished yet. So some people think that this mitzvah, living in Israel, is only a super mitzvah when the temple stood. Comes along the Pischei Tshuva. In Even Ezra Siman Ayin Hey, he says, Gam bezman hazeh. Even today, when there is no Beis HaMikdash, the mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael, shkula keneged kol ha-mitzvah shebatorah. Jews love bargains, Gershom. Buy one, get 613. So if you live in Israel and you wear tzitzis and you observe Shabbat, it's like you're doing what? All the mitzvahs of the Torah. Okay? Well, if you don't, then it's worse. Then it's worse.
It's worse to be in Israel.
Then it's worse. To live in Israel and do Averot is worse. Why is it worse? Because Israel is the palace of the king. If you live in Borough Park, that's not the pay. The whole world is God. But living in Eretz Yisrael, it's like living in God's palace. If you do a sin in God's palace, it's worse than doing a sin where? In God's garage. Right? So the whole world belongs to God. But only Pisgat Zev, I mean, where do you live in? Yeah. Arman Hatziv, that's God's palace. So to do a sin in God's palace is worse than doing a sin in what? In God's bungalow, right? Okay. So it's a two-edged sword, right? Shelley, two-edged sword, right? Okay. Now, source number 3, right?
What's a two-edged sword?
Two-edged sword, because doing a mitzvah.
Oh, I thought you said.
Yael, Mazel Tov.
Yes.
Mazel Tov, Yael. Wow.
It's Yael. What happened?
She became a ger. She became a ger. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Newborn, born again. Born again. She's born again. Right. Baruch Hashem. What an occasion. Wow. Wow.
I stand in awe.
Wow.
I stand in awe.
Wow. You're like Sarah Imenu, Yael. You're like a Mama Sarah. Right? The first Geiris, right? Mama Sarah, right? So what else are the super mitzvahs? We say every morning, we list a bunch of mitzvot, and we say, V'talmid Torah keneged kulam. V'talmid Torah keneged kulam. That studying Torah is also one of the what? Super mitzvot. Right? We quote that Baraisa in Tractate Shabbos every morning. We daven. We say the following mitzvahs have no shear, and we mention a bunch of mitzvahs, and then we say the Talmud Torah keneged kulam. So we list a bunch of mitzvot. We on the list there is what? Hachnosas orchim. There's Biker Cholim, Hachnosas Kala, Levoyat Hamet, right? We list all of the mitzvot, Ben Odom Lechavero, and then all of a sudden you'll say from left field, we say the Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. I thought Talmud Torah is Ben Odom Lamokim. What's more classic mitzvah between man and God? What's the classic mitzvah between man and God? Is what? Torah. So how come the Berais in Shabbos 127 lists all the mitzvahs between man, and then it says the greatest mitzvah between man and man is what? Masha Talmud Torah. Last time I checked, Zisla, I think that Talmud Torah is not between man and man. It's the classic between what?
Man and God.
Man and God. So therefore, what do we see? Elisheva, welcome back. Therefore, what do we see? That Talmud Torah is not just a mitzvah between what? Man and God. Talmud Torah is the greatest mitzvah between Odom Lechavero. Why is that? Because you do a chesed to your friend. You visit him in the hospital, right? Or you menachem oval him. So after the visit, the mitzvah's over, right? After the visit, you take him out for dinner, you invite him for a meal. The hana masha that he gets is temporary, right? He finishes the meal, he gets hungry again. The visit is over, he gets sad again. Any mitzvah that you do ben adam lechavero in this world, we'll say, is temporary. I mean temporary, because this world is temporary. But when you teach a friend Torah, Yiddish Ray, goes on and on, on and on. That hana that the neshama has is not like what? A visit or a dinner. That the pleasure wears off. You take your friend to a Chinese restaurant, in 12 minutes, a Japanese restaurant, and 12 minutes later he's hungry again. A lot of MSG. But when you teach your friend Torah, it's not like a Japanese dinner, Yosef. The pleasure remains part of the soul, David, forever. Forever. It's part of his neshama. So the greatest chesed you can do for your friend is what? Teach him Torah. Because that hana ray remains with him, what? Or her? Forever. It becomes part of the eternal soul.
Rabbi.
So the greatest chesed you can do for somebody is what? Teach him Torah. Because the pleasure remains forever. It doesn't wear off like what? Any pleasure you give a person in this world, right? Yes?
Well, the other day when we were going to Ashkelon,
Right.
and you listened to the music in my car,
Right.
did that give you pleasure?
It gave me pleasure, but it doesn't last. When the song is over,
But the
you know-
melody lingers on.
when you hear the song, you get pleasure. But when the song is over, the pleasure is gone. The thrill is gone, Yosef. Who sang that? The thrill is gone. I'm dating myself. B.B. King. B.B. King, see that? You can't catch me. The thrill is gone, Dr. Abramson. Any pleasure in this world, the thrill is over. Except Talmud Torah. That remains in your godly soul, David, forever. You become a piece of the rock. Because what is Torah, David? If you look in Tractate Shabbos 109, Why does the Ten Commandments begin with the word Anochi? Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Why not? How do you say I in Hebrew? Ani. So God knows Hebrew. He should have said Ani Hashem Elokecha. Why does he begin the Ten Commandments with Anochi, not Ani? So the Gemara in Shabbos 109 says Anochi is an acronym. FBI, CIA, IRS. Anochi is an acronym. Aleph, Ana, I. Nun, Nafshi. God says, I, my soul. Nun. Kaf, Tavit. I wrote my soul into the Torah. Yahavit. Aramaic, Yahav means to what? To give. You have it. Get it? You have it. So, Anochi, if you want to possess God's mind, Kaviyachol, Gershon, what do? Study Torah. God says, I wrote my soul. Ano nafshi, I, my soul, Tavit. I wrote it, you have it. You have in Aramaic and Hebrew, sister languages. You have it, Ray, you have it, you have. So God says, you want to possess my soul, study Torah. So when you study Torah, you become part of the rock. A piece of the rock. So that's the Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Okay? So, now we learned so far the super mitzvot. What about the other mitzvahs? What am I, chopped liver? Yael. No. Source number 4. You have a paper? What about the other mitzvahs? Last time I checked, it was 613. So look at source number 4. See source number 4? Mishnah Masechet Avot, Rebbe Omer. Ezia Derech Yishara. What is the Derech Yishar? You ask anybody for directions in Israel, Ray. They tell you Yishar, Adasof.
Then ask again.
He said, then ask again, okay? So Rabbi said, what's the Derech Yishara that a person should choose, right? Kol shi teferes lo yisel, teferes lo min adam. A person's path in life, he has to be teferet to those who do the mitzvah, and also, in other words, it's not enough that God has a nor from him. People have to have a nor from you. You can do mitzvot, but if you're not a kind, friendly, courteous person, then God says, who needs your mitzvot? You have to be teferes mina adam. Your mitzvah has to make people appreciate you. That you have to be a kind, courteous, considerate person. But if you're mean and unfriendly, then God says, you're doing me a favor to do mitzvot. And the punchline, see source number 4, I think it's underlined, you don't know? You have to be careful to do a mitzvah kala. What's a mitzvah kala, Yosef? An easy mitzvah like a heavy mitzvah. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. So you have to be careful to do a light mitzvah as a heavy mitzvah. Why? You don't know the reward for a mitzvah. You don't know the reward for a mitzvah. What do you mean we don't know the reward for a mitzvah?
So you can't judge.
So therefore you can't judge. So even though it's a light mitzvah, go for it because you don't know the reward for a mitzvah. How do we know, Rivka? How do we know this?
How do we know which is which?
Stay tuned.
I always had a problem with doing a mitzvah. Not that I don't mind doing a mitzvah.
Right.
All right. I have a problem with the concept of, oh, I got to do this for a mitzvah instead of I'm going to do this because it's right. And
Okay.
It's a mitzvah.
Okay. So now, okay. Very good question. Very good question. To answer your question, I will what?
Ask another question.
It says in the Ten Commandments, Yisrael, honor your father and your mother as Hashem, your God, commanded you. So the Netziv asked the question, does it say put on tefillin, Hashem, your God, commanded you? Say Shema, Hashem, your God, commanded you? Eat matzah on Pesach, Hashem, your God, commanded you? Nope. Blow the shofar, Rosh Hashanah, Hashem, your God, commanded you? It's obvious. Ma nishtana, kibbut of aim, it says honor your parents as Hashem, your God, commanded you. Masha, it's obvious. Doesn't say that by other mitzvot. I'm doing the mitzvahs. Why? Because Hashem commanded me. Why dafke by kibbut of aim does it say do the mitzvah? Because Hashem commanded you. Says the Netziv, answering your kasha, Rabbi Yosef. What's the most logical mitzvah of all? Even the Yobangis and the Watuzis do it. You know the Yobangis and the Watuzis?
Loving your mother.
Honoring your parents. You know, even the savages honor their parents, the most logical mitzvah of all. Right? In all cultures, even in the Congo.
Even animals, of course.
Right? You know, the Watuzis. It's the most logical mitzvah to honor your parents. They did so much good for me. So I might think I should honor my parents because what? It makes me feel good. Because I don't want to be worse than the Watuzis or the Abangis. So the Torah says, honor your parents, not because it makes you feel good, even though it should make you feel good. Not because it's the right thing to do, even though it is the right thing to do. Do it, just because God commanded it. And therefore, even though your parents were not kind to you, and you feel you owe them nothing, you still have to honor them. Why? Because Hashem commanded you. So therefore, it's the only mitzvah where it says that, even though God commanded me 612 other mitzvahs. So that's the Netziv point. Bar Ilan Street, that's his son. Bar Ilan Street, Netziv. So he says that. So therefore, you have the most logical mitzvah of all, you do it because Hashem commanded you. And therefore, the most logical mitzvah of all is what? Honoring your parents. Right? The most logical mitzvah of all. 1 second.
Not buy one, get 613.
What? Honoring your parents. It doesn't say that by honoring your parents. But, so what's the reward for honoring your parents? Long life. Sending away a mother bird and taking the eggs.
Same reward.
Same reward. That's very strange. Honoring your parents is such a difficult mitzvah, Zisel. Such a difficult mitzvah to honor your parents properly. And sending away the mother bird, shoo, 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 and taking the eggs, there's no effort, David. It's the same reward. Why is that?
Weights and measures.
Right. Why that? To prove that we don't know what we consider a mitzvah chamura, honoring parents. It's such a mitzvah chamura. It's so difficult to do it properly, Sonia. And shliach haken, it's such an easy mitzvah, chasing away the mother bird and making scrambled eggs. And the same exact reward. Isn't that strange, Connie? That's the Mishnah saying. In God's eyes, it's all what? It's all mitzvah. It's all God's mind. Okay? So I gave you an example of a chamura and a kala. The Rambam gives another example of a chamura and a kala. The Rambam says that, take a look at source number 5. In reality, there is no such thing. But people think that kibbut of aim is a very difficult mitzvah, which it is, and sending away the mother bird is what? Easy mitzvah. But that's our perception. From God's perspective, David, it doesn't matter. And the Rambam, look at source number 5. Perish HaMishnah, the Rambam, Masechta Avot. You see that? People think that certain mitzvahs are light. And look at the Rambam's example, Yehuda. You're going to like this. Kigon simchat haregel. What's the next one? Ulpan. People think that rejoicing on Yom Tov by having steak and wine is a light mitzvah. And people think studying Hebrew is a light mitzvah. So the Rambam considers studying Hebrew what? A mitzvah. But people think it's a mitzvah kala. But it's a mitzvah. But a person should do it with the same enthusiasm as a chamura. Kimo mila. Vitzitzis. V'shchitas ha-pesach. Mila. Mila is a difficult mitzvah. The Jerusalem Post wrote this weekend that certain Jews don't want to do mila. Because they make the baby suffer. They make the baby suffer. So the Rambam says mila is what? Is a difficult mitzvah, but a person should do it with the same zeal as what he thinks is a light mitzvah. What's a light mitzvah, Ray? Studying Hebrew. Did you know that? Studying Hebrew is considered what? A mitzvah. So the Rambam says you should do the mitzvah of ulpan with the same enthusiasm as you do what? A brit milah. And tzitzis. The Rambam says that wearing tzitzis is a chamura. What's so hard about wearing tzitzis? I don't understand that, Rivka. But the Rambam says that wearing tzitzis, I guess when it's 100 degrees outside.
No, it's not because
No.
it's because you got to show you're a Jew.
Oh.
You gotta claim proudly here.
Okay. The Rambam considers tzitzis chamura. So the Rambam says you should wear tzitzis, do bris milah with the same zeal and enthusiasm as a light mitzvah. What's a light mitzvah? Studying Lashon Kodesh. Did you know it's a mitzvah? Good thing you came today. The Rambam Perish HaMishnayos, the Sechta Avos chapter 2 says that studying Hebrew is what?
That's one of his 613 mitzvot.
Oh, so now Rivka hit a home run.
Again.
She hit a home run. She's always hitting home runs. The whole shear is because of her, Rabbi Yaakov. Rabbi Yaakov, the shear is because of your wife. She hit a home run. Now we got Houston control. We have a problem, Yael. The last time I checked the Sefer HaMitzvot, it's not there. So the Mefarshim wonder, Dr. Abramson, the Rambam wrote the Perish HaMishnayos when he was 24 years old. And there he writes that speaking and studying Hebrew, Zishal, is what? A mitzvah. Years later, he wrote the Sefer HaMitzvot in Yad HaChazaka, years later. For some reason, Connie, he left out speaking Hebrew as a mitzvah. It looks like what? Lily only changed his mind. Because in the Sefer, in the Perish HaMishnayos, when he was 24 years old, he writes speaking Hebrew as a mitzvah, as you see in source number 5. But for some reason, when he wrote the Yad HaChazaka, David, in the Sefer HaMitzvot, much later in life, for some reason, Gershom, he omits what? Speaking Hebrew as a mitzvah. So the Mefarshim are puzzled. Mizuk the Yiddish Hashvera Rambam. How do you say that in English? It's a hard Rambam. Why the holy Rambam changed, Rabbi Avram, why he changed his mind? He did. He didn't make it in the
general mitzvah.
Ma?
There's the mitzvah that is general. It can be included.
Lama. Simchas HaRegel, who can moneh? Simchas HaRegel, he counts. He says, what's a mitzvah kala? He says, Simchas HaRegel, and what? Lashon Kodesh. And yet, in the Sefer HaMitzvahs, he does count Simchas HaRegel, but in not what? Lashon Kodesh. Rabbi Avram, Tzorech Iyun.
Riyot Kadosh. That can be included.
No, that's another story. Why he doesn't count Kedoshim Tiyu, why he doesn't count living in Israel.
It doesn't count it in either place?
No. So now, I think of Abraham, I think you hit a grand slam. You know baseball? I think you hit a grand slam home run.
It's football season.
I think Avram hit a grand slam. He's saying, why the Rambam does not count living in Israel as a mitzvah. Isn't that strange? He does not count living in Israel as a mitzvah. And the Sifri says it's what? The greatest mitzvah. So the Chazoin Ish. What?
It's taken for granted we should live in Israel.
You can't do a lot of mitzvot.
1 minute. Okay, so you guys are on the right track, okay? David, I'm glad I came today. These guys are really cooking with gas today. So the Chazoin Ish asked the question. The Chazoin Ish, how come the Rambam doesn't count living in Israel as a mitzvah? When the Sifri says it equals all the other mitzvahs. So he says, look at the Rambam's Hagdama to Sefer, his Hagdama to Sefer HaMitzvot. He asked, there's a pasuk in the Torah, Kedoshim Tiyu, be holy. He asked, how come I don't count that in the Sefer HaMitzvot? So he says, I'm only counting pratim. How do you say that in English? Details, specifics. But the tafkid of all the mitzvahs is Kedoshim Tiyu. I cannot count Kedoshim Tiyu as a mitzvah, Yael, because the tafkid, the goal of any mitzvah is to attain Kedusha. So how could I make Kedoshim Tiyu a mitzvah? That's the end game. It can't be a mitzvah. That's Koila Kola Torah Kula. That's what the Rambam says by what?
Living in Israel.
Kedoshim Tiyu. Says the Chazoin Ish. That's what the Rambam meant. The tafkid of all the mitzvahs Kedoshim Tiyu, and the Sifri says the tafkid of all the mitzvahs is not to do them in Borough Park, not even in Lakewood. Where? In Pisgat Zev. So the same reason the Rambam doesn't count Kedoshim Tiyu as a mitzvah, because that's the end game. That's the, how do you say tzvek in Yiddish? Tzvek. The goal. So the Chazoin Ish says that's why the Rambam doesn't count living in Israel as a mitzvah for the same reason he doesn't count Kedoshim Tiyu. That is what? That's the whole kit and caboodle. The purpose of any mitzvah is to attain Kedusha and to live in Eretz Yisrael. Now Rabbi Avram gave another chidush. He said that's why perhaps the Rambam doesn't count speaking Hebrew in the Taryag Mitzvot, because perhaps that's like living in Israel. That's what you meant, Rabbi Avram. Because if you don't understand Hebrew, you really cannot appreciate the Torah. Because, it loses in the translation, Zisel. It loses in translation.
But the Hebrew he's talking about is the Hebrew that you learn, all part of the Hebrew you learn.
The Hebrew, the Lashon Kodesh.
Learning Torah.
So Rabbi Avram gave a tremendous chidush. The reason the Rambam doesn't count, he says it's a mitzvah, but he doesn't count in the Sefer Mitzvot. Rabbi Avram is saying for the same reason he doesn't count living in Israel. And Kedoshim Tiyu. Because the tafkid of all the mitzvahs is to what? Attain Kiddusha and live where? In Israel. So Rav Avram is saying a tremendous chiddush. I'm glad I came, Rav Avram. That's why he also doesn't count speaking Hebrew, even though he said it's a mitzvah, because that is what? The sum game, or the climax, or the kol haTorah kula. Because if you don't understand Hebrew, you really cannot appreciate the Torah. And even a good translation is not always correct. And I'll give you a classic example. I hope Art Scroll forgives me.
I won't tell anybody.
V'hafta oreacha kamocha. They translate, love your friend as yourself. Get real, Ray. Anybody that loves his friend as himself. The biggest Rebbe in the world, Dr. Abramson. That means next time I go on vacation, I got to take my friend along. Next time I buy myself a suit and a pair of shoes, I got to take my friend along. But you love your friend as yourself. Next time I go on a cruise, I got to take my friend along.
That would be good. Can I be your friend?
That's what Art Scroll says. Love your friend as yourself. Let's get real, Yael.
Your friends, your wife.
The biggest Rebbe in the world, it's just impossible. Da 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 da, it's impossible. Can the Torah command something which is not possible? It's a totally wrong translation.
Is that a Christian translation?
No, it's an Art Scroll. Please. It says, look in the Art Scroll. Love your friend as yourself. A guy who reads that, is the Torah serious? Is the Torah serious? Get real. Unlike other religions which are pie in the sky, not meant for the real world, Judaism is not a religion, it's what? Way of life. So how could the Torah command something which is impossible? Says Rav Soloveitchik, Yael, the Torah never said that. You gotta know where to put the commas. I had a grandpa that lived with me. We lived on the ground floor. So one day I knock on his door for dinner, and I'm having a knife and fork in my hand. I said, "Let's eat, Grandpa." He jumps out the window. Because I came with a knife and a fork, and I knocked on his door. Said, "Let's eat, Grandpa." Good thing we lived on the ground floor. He jumped out the window. So then Zisla tried again. I knocked. I said, "Let's eat, Grandpa." He says, "Now you're talking, Sonny. What's for dinner?" So if you don't know where to put the commas, you might eat your grandpa. Says the great Rav Soloveitchik, "V'hafta oreacha," comma. You have to love your friend, kamoicha, because he's just like you. You can't love him like yourself. It doesn't say that. You have to know where to put the comma. V'hafta oreacha, comma. You have to love your friend. Kamoicha. Because what? What do you mean he's like me? Love your fellow Jew. Like yourself? No, because he is just like you. Mash, what do you mean just like me? He doesn't look like me. But we're all piece of the rock. We all have a tzelem Elohim. We all have a chelik Elohim Yimal Yosef. So you have to love your fellow Jew. Like you? No. It's not possible. You have to love him, even though you don't like him. Kamocha, because he's just like you, but he's just like me. And the end of the verse says, Ani Hashem. The end of the verse, David says, Ani Hashem. What does I am God got to do with it, Zisel? I know he's my God. Love your friend, comma. He is just like you. And how does the verse end? Yes. Ani Hashem. What does Ani Hashem got to do with it? I know he's God. So God is saying, you know why you have to love him? He's just like you, Ani Hashem. You're all part of me. Ki chelek Hashem amo. We all have a piece of the rock inside of us. Therefore, we have to love each other. Because we all are like each other. Ani Hashem, the end of the verse, Sonia. Otherwise, Ani Hashem doesn't fit. I know He's God. But we have to love each other because we all have a piece of the rock. We all have a godly soul. A tzelem Elohim, a chelik Elohim imal. But if you don't know Hebrew, you get all mixed up. So therefore, understanding Hebrew, Rav Avraham gave a big chiddush over here, is a super mitzvah. It precedes the mitzvah. It's like living in Israel, and it's like what? Kedoshim tiyu. Because if you don't understand Hebrew properly, then you don't even know what the words say. You cannot even trust a good translation, right?
Good terrorist, but it doesn't answer the question why he had it at the beginning and he didn't put it at the end.
What do you mean beginning?
When he had it initially, he counted it as a mitzvah.
No, he said it's a mitzvah.
But
then he figured, according to Abraham, it's like Kedoshim Tiyu, and I can't count it.
So as maturity,
right?
When maturity changed his mind?
Didn't change his mind. He said it precedes the mitzvah. It's like Kedoshim Tiyu, or what, of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Right? Now, okay.
Rabbi?
I'm glad you came, Abraham. Otherwise, I didn't know the answer to this question. Looks like the Rambam forgot. Maybe he had a senior moment.
Well, he did change
He left
his
it.
mind.
He left it off the
He
list.
changed many things we understand.
Right, and the Mishnah Torah, right, because he got much older.
Right.
So,
Ray had a question.
yes, Ray.
Does that contradict what Rabbi Hillel said? He made a nili.
If I am not for myself, who is for me? What does that mean?
You have to think of yourself too.
That's Sprecher.
First.
Im ein anili mili.
If I am not for myself, what am I?
Says you have to love your friend because he's just like you. That means I have to love myself too. Because I also have a godly soul.
Exactly.
So who comes first? Who comes chayech or kaidmin? If you and your friend are lost in space and you have a canteen of water and he doesn't, what's the halacha, Ray? You have to drink it. Chayech or kaidmin. My life comes first.
What if it's your wife?
Unless you like yourself.
What about your
you
wife? She
like
comes
somebody.
Beautiful. Your Masha said, if you don't love yourself, you can't love another Jew.
That's right.
I'm also Jewish. I also have a godly soul. I have to love myself too, because I'm also part of God. How could I love you if I don't love myself? But halacha says that my life comes first. Chayecha koidmin. Rabbi Kiva's famous case, two guys are lost in space. Remember the movie, Lost in Space? And I have a canteen, you ain't got a canteen. If we share it, we're both going to die. And it's my water. What's the halacha, Zisel? I have to drink it.
So what if you share it?
You're killing yourself.
Both people now.
You'll both die.
You're not allowed to do that.
You could share it if there's enough. But if the sharing means that you'll die too, you're not permitted to share it. Because it's not my life. He gives life and only he can take it.
So let's say, God forbid, let's say you have a terrorist incident and somebody throws a hand grenade and somebody drops their body on it to protect other people.
Oh, so now you opened up a whole discussion, you'll say, for another shiur. Now you open up a whole discussion for another shiur.
Can you give up your life for that?
Major Roy Klein. Major Roy Klein is a Chayinul Avracha, Hashem Yikom Domo. He jumped on a grenade, and he saved his platoon. My life comes first. So the Minchas Chinuch asked your kasha in 1837. The Minchas Chinuch asked your kasha. If the greatest mitzvah is to stay alive, my life comes first. How could Major Roy Klein jump on a grenade and what?
Kill himself.
So he says, there's a mitzvah in the Torah, Melchemet Mitzvah. There's a mitzvah to go kill PLO terrorists. There's a mitzvah in the Torah to protect Am Yisrael and the Eretz. That's one of the Tayag mitzvahs, Melchemet Mitzvah. So the Chazayni asked Rav Yaakov, how could I go out to war? You know how to put yourself in danger to save somebody else.
You have to kill somebody.
Right? And you're risking your life. Stay home. So he says, Melchemet Mitzvah is different. If you are a soldier fighting for Israel's existence, then your life doesn't come first. Otherwise, there could be no concept, Zisel Melchemet Mitzvah.
Can't be a soldier.
Right? You can't be a soldier. So Minchas Chinuch in 1837 answered your kasha, Ray, that when it comes to a Melchemet Mitzvah, if you're a soldier, then your life doesn't come first. That's the whole idea of Melchemet Mitzvah. How do you say Melchemet Mitzvah in English? Holy war. Holy war to defend Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael. So a soldier, that's a different ball game there. The whole idea is to give your life to save others. But if you're not a soldier, and it's not war, then your life does come first. Okay? Yes?
After going back a moment to living in Eretz Yisrael.
Right.
Many years ago, I heard Rabbi Yeshuv Cohen's
Chief Rabbi of Haifa.
Yeah. So he said to me that of the 613 mitzvot, there are 58 mitzvot hatluyot ba'aretz. There are 58 mitzvot.
Agricultural mitzvahs. Agricultural.
Can only be done in Eretz Yisrael.
Right, right.
So he said two things. Number one, the 58 is begematria, numerically chen.
Chen. Grace.
Right? Which
Grace.
means grace. If you don't live in Eretz Yisrael,
You don't have God's grace. Beautiful. Can I use it?
No, he said another thing. He said, if you take an exam and you decide that of the 100 questions, each one's worth a point, you decide you're not going to do the first 15 questions, no matter what.
Right.
You're only going to do the other 85.
Right.
When you get them all right, you will get a B in the course. You will not be on the dean's list.
You won't be on the dean's. You want to be on the dean's list? You got to live in Pisgat Zev. I mean in Kiryat Moshe. I mean in Ratafia. Right? Okay. Shara Chesed. Well, Ratafia was, right? Now let's get to number 6. Fasten your seatbelts. Yael, number 6. You have it? It says by tzitzis, when you wear tzitzis, or item oto. Or item oto. Uschartem is called mitzvahs Hashem. When you wear tzitzis, you will see him and do all the mitzvahs. Shkula mitzvah zu keneget kol mitzvah shebetorah. It says if you wear tzitzis, you'll see him and you do all the mitzvahs. So you see, by wearing tzitzis, you do all the mitzvahs of the Torah. So now, the Talmud in Yishalmi, I have it written down over here. In my handwriting, no?
Read your handwriting?
No? Can I read my handwriting? It should have said, Ritem otam. You will see them. The strings. It doesn't say Masha. It says, Ritem oto. You will see him. What do you mean you'll see him? It says you should see the strings. Otam. So the Yishalmi says, in Brochas Perik Aleph, Hamekayim mitzvahs tzitzis, mikabel penei ashchina. Yiddish Yosef. When you wear tzitzis, you get to see the boss in the afterlife. It says, or eat them oto. Now, if you read the English, you ain't going to get that, Ray. The English says you will see it. But oto doesn't mean it. Oto means what? Him. So again, if you don't know Hebrew, Rabbi Abraham, you get a distorted picture of the Torah. So that's like the whole Torah. Ritam oto. So it says in the Shalmi, Brochas Perik Aleph, it doesn't say you will see them, the strings. If you wear tzitzis in this life or eat them oto, you're guaranteed to see him with a capital H in Olam Haba. Women don't need tzitzis. You guys see the boss without tzitzis. It ain't necessary because tzitzis and tefillin and talis are props. Props in order to connect with God. Ladies don't need the props. They know they're connected and bonded with Hashem without the physical props. Men, if I stop the cup, we need physical props. Women have a bina yetera. They know they're bonded with Hashem without props. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We need the black boxes and the tzitzis to remind us that we're being hugged by Him. Ladies don't need those tangible symbols.
Yeah, we're getting hugged.
Yeah, you're getting hugged by the one above, and you know you don't need those symbols. Now,
it also says Oto means the tefillin.
Oto means him. Ask any Ilpan teacher. It doesn't mean it.
No,
It says you will see him. Don't trust the English. You can't trust the English. You read them Oto.
He's adding something else.
Him.
No, it's
Tchelis are him.
Midrash,
It.
Midrash says that it means the tefillin.
Yeah, but Oto doesn't mean
Means
it.
what?
It means Oto means him. Ask any Ulpan teacher. You'll wear tzitzis and you'll see him. Right? Now, speaking about Tchelet, Gershom, I'm glad you mentioned it. Yes, scientists rate colors from 1 to 1,000. Right, Elsheva? Yes, you can Google it. Colors are rated from 1 to 1,000. Techelet, the blue. Guess which number it is?
613.
Coinky Dinky? Oh, I love this one. David Harrell. This you can you Google it. Colors are rated 1 to 1,000. You can Google it afterwards. And number 613 is Tchelet. Buy one, get 613. So how do the scientists know that? Coinky Dinky?
No.
It's amazing, right? Now, yes, they rate colors
The energy that they put off.
from 1 to 1,000. Tchelet, the blue thread on the tzitzis, happens to be Coinky Dinky, David, 613. Gee, is that a Coinky Dinky? No, the Talmud says, buy one, get 613. When you wear Tchelet on your tzitzis, 613 just happens to be 613 on the what's it called, the scale of colors. That's too fantastic great to be a Coinky Dinky. Now, it's very important, the mitzvot. But the Medrash Vayikra Rabbah says, Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah. And that's not one of the 613. Derech Eretz, Menschlichkeit, courtesy, decency, comes before the Torah. That's not one of the 613. Why? Because it precedes the 613. So Al-Soloveitchik asked, how does in every statement in the oral Torah of Yosef has to have a source where? How does the Medrash Vayikra Rabbah know Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah? That Menschlichkeit, really can't, Menschlichkeit, decency, courtesy, consideration for others precedes the Torah. So it's not one of the 613 because what? It's the Amud where all the 613 stand on, like living in Israel, right? So Rasavechik says, if you check in Bereshis, in Genesis 1, it says God placed the Kruvim, remember those angels when he kicked out Adam and Chava? Cherubs, thank you. Lishmor et Derech Eitz HaChaim. It says Lishmor et Derech Eitz HaChaim. To guard the Derech Eitz HaChaim. What's Eitz HaChaim? Eitz Chaim Hilem HaChazikim Ba. The Torah is called the what? Mishlei, tree of life. But the Torah mentions Eitz Chaim, but the word before that is what? Derech. In Genesis 1. So Soloveitchik says this is a source that Derech Eretz comes before the Eitz HaChaim. Eitz HaChaim is a symbol of Torah. Right? According to Mishlei. But there's something comes before. God placed the Kruvim, Lishmor et Derech Eretz comes before Eitz HaChaim. So if a person doesn't have Derech Eretz, common decency and courtesy for others, then who needs his mitzvot? It's a Chil Hashem. That's the way a Torah Jew acts, with no Derech Eretz, with no Menschlichkeit. So for him, a person like that, it's much better what? Shouldn't do any mitzvot. Yes?
We learned somewhere that, I think it was Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, also Derech Eretz said is working.
Derech Eretz also.
Job.
Getting it. Yofa Talmud Torah and Derech Eretz. So now we have a contradiction. Rivka again hit a home run. Yeah, 1 minute. The Mishnah says Yofa Talmud Torah im Derech Eretz. Talmud Torah is beautiful when it's combined with Derech Eretz. And Vayikra Rabbah says Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah. So make up your mind. Is Derech Eretz beautiful when it's combined with Torah, like the Mishnah over says? Or is Derech Eretz what? Before. So the answer is Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah and Vayikra Rabbah. That's speaking about menschlichkeit, decency, and consideration and courtesy for others. When the Mishnah says Talmud Torah is beautiful with Derech Eretz, there it means what? Working for a living. Derech Eretz has two meanings. It depends on the context. It means menschlichkeit, decency and courtesy. When it's used in that respect, it's Kadma LaTorah. But when the Mishnah says Yehuda Yofa Talmud Torah and Derech Eretz, that studying Torah is beautiful when it's combined with Derech Eretz. Derech Eretz means what? A livelihood. There it means a livelihood. Right? Because the Torah says, the Mishnah says, any Torah that is not combined with a job, sofa b'teila. Kol Torah she'ini mamlacha, sofa b'teila. In the end, will what? Come to nothing. And then you'll become, you have to become chas v'sholom dishonest. So it's important to study Torah, do mitzvahs, but a person has to remember that Derech Eretz kadma Torah. That ben Adam lachaveiro comes before ben Adam lamakayim. Why is that, David? Because when you do ben Adam lamakayim, you're putting on tefillin, you're pleasing God. When you do a mitzvah for another Jew, you're pleasing the other Jew and you're pleasing God. It's a twofer. Because every Jew has part of God in him. So you do a mitzvah just for God, eating matzah on Pesach, you're blowing the shofar, it's a oneer. You're pleasing God. When you do a chesed for another Jew, so it's a twofer. Because you're doing a chesed for the Jew, you're also doing a chesed for what? For the part of God that lives inside of that Jew. We all have a piece of the rock. We all have a tzelem elim, a chedik al mimal. So therefore, when you do a mitzvah between man and man, Rabbi Yosef, it's a twofer. Jews love bargains. Buy one and get two. In fact, the Baal Tanya says there's a mitzvah to love God. Right? How do you love God, says the Baal Tanya? By loving a man. By loving a fellow Jew, you're loving God. So every time you do an act of chesed for a fellow Jew, you're doing an act of chesed for whom?
God.
His Father in heaven.
Especially for a convert.
Buy one and get what? Two. When you do an act of chesed for a convert, buy one, get 36. Ooh. The Rambam Sefer Chinuch says when you do an act of chesed for a convert, you get 36 mitzvahs. That's the kingfish. Remember the kingfish?
Why 36?
That's what he said. The Rambam, the Chinuch, they count. It says 36 times v'haftem et hager. 36 times, more than any other mitzvah. To love and be kind to a ger is repeated, Zisel, 36 times, more than what? Any other mitzvah. So, we love bargains. So, if we are kind to Yael, we're getting 36 mitzvahs.
And she's so easy to be kind.
Right. Thank you very much. A Thursday is a fast day. So, we're having a special shiur at 2:30. Does halacha ever permit euthanasia? Thursday at 2:30, in honor of the fast, does halacha ever allow mercy killing? That's a cliffhanger. Thursday at 2:30 right here. Thank you.